Assalamu alaikum and greetings, my friends. About 2 years ago, I had a stroke. Well, actually, it's my right eye couldn't move to the left, and so I had to be hospitalized for observation for 5 days. So the moment that I knew that I probably had a stroke, because my sister is a doctor, she's a pediatrician working for one of the government hospitals over here in Malaysia. So over the 5 days, I used a Ruqyah on myself, and when I checked in, my blood pressure was about 220 over 119. So if you notice, that's very high. Not super high, but it's still very, very high. And turns out that the doctors who checked me did their internship under my sister, and so I got to talking to them. And when we checked my retina, it was all okay. My blood, my blood composition or the blood test was okay. My kidney functions were okay. And one of the doctors told me that based on my heart readings, even though I had no heart problems, that I probably had my high blood pressure for a long time. So then, but the interesting thing was the CT scan and later even the NMR showed nothing. So they told me that the lesion was probably very small. So on the last day, I was doing my Ruqyah on myself, and then after the first day, you're not supposed to get off your bed, and you're supposed to just lie. Even going to the toilet, you're supposed to use a bedpan, but I didn't bother because I found that if I prayed, the Muslim prayers, even I did the sujud, the prostration, there was no change. The doctor did ask me, do you feel anything when you prostrate? I said, no. I mean, it's all the same. Just my right eye could not turn to the left. So I had what's called an INO. I can't quite remember exactly what that meant, but essentially that when the neurologist checked me, I actually had probably a small lesion, very microscopic. He told me might not even appear in the NMR scan later on, which it did not appear, true to what he said. But after he tapped a few spots on my body, and when he didn't get any response from two sides, and I couldn't walk in a certain way, he told me this is a brainstem type of lesion or damage. So that was an interesting thing. So on my right side, on my when I was about to leave on the last day, there was an elderly Chinese gentleman, and he came in and he was groaning and he was in quite a bad way. And I asked his wife. So he said they just had a stroke, and he had difficulty swallowing. In fact, he almost choked when they gave him some pills to swallow. So basically, I practice the Ruqyah every morning and evening. The whole Ruqyah, 20 minutes, is actually committed to memory. So when I read, it's from memory. So I asked his wife and him, said, okay, look, I'm gonna do my, because the wife told me, you don't look like someone who's got a stroke because you're quite strong, because she saw me, I prayed and I read the Quran in the prayer. That was about 20 minutes, maybe 10, 20 minutes standing. I went to the toilet by myself. I just covered one eye because I had double vision. And so I said, look, can I, I'm going to read from some healing verses for myself. Would you like me to, read for you as well? He said, okay. So I put my hands on him and I recited the whole Ruqyah. The whole Ruqyah, you can hear the recording on the that I've put for download. And after 20 minutes, so I took my hand off him and said, okay, so how do you feel? Oh, very much better. And he could start to move his right hand, and he said felt more calm and he can swallow. So I said, well, this is my last day, and since I can't read for you, would you like me to give you, I offered him the recording of the Ruqyah, and you read it and you use it on your own. He said, yes, please. So I WhatsApp him the recording. So that was it. And then I think a few months later, I sort of asked by WhatsApp, how are you? He said it was okay, it was fine, until about about 3-4 weeks back. Suddenly I had a WhatsApp message from him asking, that the prayers I gave him last time was very good. He's been playing the recording, and he said a few of his Malay Muslim friends had COVID-19. He said, can I give it to them? I can't download. For some reason, he couldn't download it anymore. He didn't have it. So I said, okay, fine, I'll give it to you. So that's when I thought maybe I should upload the Ruqyah, and you can download it. And I checked with my Ustad. He said that it's permissible for me to collect a fee for it for my time, because the server is actually a server that I've been using. I mean, the IP address has been the same for more than 25 years. Those of you who are my Pendeka.com members will remember this. It's exactly the same server. Maybe the machine has changed, but the IP address is the same, and the service provider is the same. I've been with them for about 25 years. And so there is a fee. You can download it and use it according to instructions. And if you check the link that is below this post, you can download it and you can use it. So I've set it in such a way that you can use it for free for about 3 days. Because normally, if you play it for 3 to 7 hours per day, if you have COVID, you can put it on your chest. Usually by the third day, you'd feel a difference. And sometimes it can be pretty dramatic, sometimes it can be very gradual, so it depends on various situations and how serious the disease is, I suppose. And then if after the 3 days, if you find there's no effect, there's no problem, just delete the file, and that's it. Or if you find it's beneficial and want to continue it, so just you can use PayPal to pay me about 50 ringgit, Malaysian ringgit, that's about 13 USD, not a lot of money, and you can use it for unlimited period for one device. So you could have 3 mobile phones, right? So you can download and use on your 3 mobile phones on the same Google account, for example. And if somebody else wants it, then he has to pay on a separate mobile phone and use that, and that's all. So basically, and you can have unlimited usage, and you can forward it as long as they stick to the conditions. So this is halal. I've checked with my ustaz, who's actually been trained, he's Hafiz of Quran, and he's been trained in all 4 mazhabs. And he's one of the few people I think in this region who can actually have sanad on Bukhari. So we do the madrasah that I normally that's close to my house actually does Khatam Bukhari every year. So so he said this kind of thing is halal, it's not a problem. And if you need any questions, you can check me out on my Facebook page, www.mualij.com, mualij.com. That will actually redirect to my Facebook page. You can join me there, and I can tell you about tales of possession, sickness, tuberculosis to possession. There's even one of the instances that happened was that my niece actually used this ruqyah for fellow student who kept wanting to run into the sea. She was in a university in East Malaysia, one of those universities there, and so she called me one night and said, Dad, my niece and nephews call me Dad. So I've got one of my friends who's actually keeps wanting to run into the sea and drown herself. So I said, what should I do? I said, okay, so you just take this ruqyah, play it to her and see what happens. Then later I called her and I said, so what happened? She said, well, the person suddenly went and held her hands against her head, and then she was like in pain, big headache, and she tried to take my phone and throw it away. Okay, so I said, basically try and restrain her, tie her down to the bed or whatever, and play the ruqyah for maybe about 3-7 hours. Then I put down the phone, and I think the next day I checked. That happened about maybe 4 or 5 years ago. And I checked, and so I asked her what happened. Oh, she's all right now. So what happened? I asked her. So she said, well, when we played the recording, so after several hours, maybe a few hours, she started to vomit. So she vomited and she came to. And then she said her whole body was aching, but she was okay. Okay, so this is an example of 2 instances. One is a physiological type of damage caused by perhaps a stroke, and the other one is a spiritual damage caused by jinn possession. If you want to know whether you got a jinn or not, you can play this ruqyah and see what happens. And you'll be very surprised at some of the things that can happen when you play this ruqyah in certain conditions. Okay, so with that, I'll end this little session, and please feel free to go to www.mualij.com, mualij.com, www.mualij.com, and we